Simply put, prospecting is not fun. There's no doubt about it that it is not a fun thing to do, but there's certain things that you can do to find enjoyment in it and to start to actually enjoy that process that I'm going to break down with my own experience from building mass momentum as a new agent, getting over 80% of my listings in my first year from door knocking and over 50% of my listings in my second year from door knocking. This also applies to cold calling because I did that as well. So what I want to do is break down the 5 things that you can do in order to find enjoyment when you're prospecting, which is going to make it a lot easier to not only excel at prospecting and start to convert higher, but also it's going to allow you to be far more consistent, which we all know consistency is the name of the game. So for anybody that's struggling with prospecting, this video is going to completely change the trajectory of your lead generation. What's up, guys? My name is Mike Sherrard with eXp Realty. I train thousands of agents every year to scale their business the modern way with social media. However, I built my business in the beginning using traditional prospecting. I was a new agent in a new city that didn't know anybody. I had no money, a very typical story to most agents that get started in real estate. So I chose prospecting. Now, I did cold call and I did door knock, but what I personally found is that door knocking was something I preferred because I like to be able to have some sort of emotional connection with people, and so that people could see my energy, feel it. And what I also found is that it's a lot more difficult for somebody to shut the door on your face than to hang up the phone. It's a lot easier for people to be rude and yell at you on the phone than it is when you're standing there with a smile on your face. So I found that the conversion of door knocking was much higher, so that's what I doubled down in, and I door knocked for 3 hours a day, 7 days a week for the first 6 months of my licensing. And I actually ended up getting 2 listings at $700,000 a piece the very first day I door knocked in -10 in the snow, in the dark, after my job as an engineer. So what I want to do is break down the 5 things that I was able to do to find enjoyment that led to that massive conversion rate that I had, which was far superior to the average agent that prospects, and start to build momentum in your business. So the first one is that I had an unwavering belief that I was providing immense value to the community. Let me explain. The average person struggles with prospecting because they're so used to being solicited or spammed or whatever. So what happens is that because you're so used to getting cold calls as you're growing up as a kid or as an adult from services that are trying to solicit you, you feel like you're being solicited as you start to prospect. And once you start to feel like you're soliciting or annoying people, that's exactly how you're going to come across. You're going to come across in a way that you are annoying people and that you are soliciting. And that makes it very difficult mentally for you to continue to be consistent with prospecting because you're always feeling like every time you pick up the phone or every time you knock on the door that you're annoying somebody, and nobody wants to annoy anybody. So the big shift that I made is I was fully convinced internally that if somebody was to sell their property, especially in the market that I was in 2017, where only 27% of listings were selling in my market, I knew that I was the best person for the job. I knew I would go above and beyond anybody else in my market. I knew that I was going to do whatever it took to provide an incredible experience for those clients. So what happened is I felt like I was being of value, of service to every single door I knocked on and every single call that I made. Let me put this into a different example. If you found the cure to cancer, would you call every single person in your market center to let them know if they know anybody that you've got the cure that can save their life? If you knew that, would you go knock on every single door saying, hey, if you or anybody in your family has this certain illness, I have the cure? Well, you are the cure to agents that are not going to do a diligent job for those properties and for those clients. You are the cure to people that are going to upload the property to the MLS and let it become a sitting duck or treat them like a number. So I had that belief internally where I fully convinced myself that I basically had the cure for realtor cancer, in the sense of I had the cure for people that weren't going to go above and beyond for those people. And once you can mentally convince yourself that that's the value that you're providing, it makes it pretty easy, because even though you're going to get some no's, you're going to get some people that are grouchy, and transparently, this is another tip that I'm going to throw as a bonus, is that you never know what's going on behind closed doors. And that's something that goes more towards objection handling, and I've got some content about that, but it allowed me to get over the fact that I might get some rejections and objections. I might get some people that slam the door here and there, but who cares? Because I've got the cure. And I want people to be properly served if they're going to look at buying or selling this year. Now, quickly touching before we go on to point number 2 about that objection. As you start to get rejection and objections when it comes to prospecting, just always remember that you never know what's going on in people's lives. This is something that makes a world of a difference too, because ultimately a lot of agents take rejection personally. They think it's something that they did wrong. Usually it's not, sometimes it is, but ultimately you do not know what's going on in anybody's life. Maybe they slammed that door on you because they just, found out that they lost their job. Maybe they just got some tragic news about an illness or a death in the family or something negative that happened to a friend. Or maybe they're just completely miserable people, but ultimately you can't allow that to affect your continued progress in your business, and you can't take that personally, because as long as you're showing up with value, you did nothing wrong. You're just trying to be of service to the community. So if they decide to react that way, just always remember that how terrible would it be to live a life where when anybody shows up to your door with a smile, or whenever somebody calls you and provides value, that you react that way. Look at that as an incredible reflection of their terrible life while you're out here building the life of your dreams. Now, number 2 is going to be a really interesting one that I found a lot of enjoyment in, and I think you will as well, which is that I felt every time I was door knocking, I was outworking every single agent in my market. What I did is I found enjoyment in almost gamifying it and wanting to win a business and become a top producer, which I did, but finding enjoyment in outworking other people that are complacent and lazy and not willing to put the work in. There's a big sense of pride there when you're out there putting the boots on the ground in the trenches. Every time I got a no, that was one step closer to the yes. And all these other agents were having their patio beers and golfing and complaining about not having deals, and I was out there outworking them. And you start to find some level of satisfaction in that, in doing what others aren't willing to do. It goes back to the quote of do what people aren't willing to do so you can live the life that they will never have. And as you start to do these things, it starts to give you this feeling of building momentum. You're putting work into your business. You're doing something that's tangible, where you're actually having conversations, because at the end of the day, to build a successful real estate business, it entirely comes down to having conversations on a frequent basis. The ones that have the most frequent conversations are the ones that get the most clients, because on average, it takes about 50 intentful real estate conversations to lead to one transaction. Well, I convinced myself that all these other agents were being lazy and not doing anything, and I was out here having those 50 conversations a day. And that is a sense of pride, and it really makes you feel like you're doing something that others aren't, which gives you that sense of enjoyment even when you're doing something that's not really enjoyable. Now, number 3 is an interesting one. I'm going to break it into a couple of parts. It probably could be a bunch of different parts, but I just want to condense this for you to be respectful of your time. The first part of it was reverse engineering the amount of doors it took to get one deal, and then calculating how much every door cost, or how much I earned from knocking every single door. So for me, when I calculated how many doors it took for me to get a listing, I realized that every single door I knocked was about $50. So when I was getting no's, I was like, great, couldn't care less. That's $50. Thanks, on to the next one. Every single door, $50. And when you can start to calculate that income that you're generating, knowing what the return on the investment will be, that starts to make you feel like you're getting paid to do something that is not that enjoyable, instead of not seeing any progress, not feeling like it's going to work out, not feeling like it's going to yield anything in terms of tangible results for your business. When you can reverse engineer and calculate what a door is going to make you, what a phone call is going to make you, that starts to give you the confidence that you are seeing tangible results in your business. Now, you have to convince yourself of that, but it very much is true, because I reverse engineered that for every single deal that I did, and I did the majority of my deals from door knocking in my first year, and $50 a door to either get no response, or a no, or maybe not now, or whatever, is pretty good, right? It's $50 more than sitting and watching Netflix for a door knock, right? So as you start to convince yourself, it leads you to the second part of part number 3, which is that every single no is closer to a yes, and it built mental grit. This is something that is really important to business, is that mental fortitude and grit is what allows you to build sustainable, scalable businesses and push through all of the difficult times. And as you start to get no and no and no and no, well, every single no is one step closer to a yes, right? It's like the Thomas Edison thing when he created the light bulb. It's like 10,000, fails, and then on the 10,001st, he ended up creating light. But when we start looking at that, every single time it didn't work out, it was one step closer to it working out. But if you're just sitting around, hanging out, not doing anything, waiting for clients to come to you, well, you're not getting any no's, so you're not getting any closer. And that starts to build up that mental fortitude that you need to push through anything when building a real estate business. Number 4 is a really interesting one, and this has actually made a big difference in my business, was I felt when I was prospecting, specifically door knocking, that I was creating a story that one day would impact others. And it very much has. My story, very humbly, I'm very grateful for this, has impacted thousands, tens of thousands of agents around the world because I documented when I was door knocking and what I went through to get to the point where I'm at today, where I have an incredible life and a multiple 7-figure per year business. And that's very amazing, but nobody can ever discount the fact that I'm here because I documented what I went through to get here. You can go back on my Instagram, scroll back to 2017, and you will see the photos of me taking selfies with my flyers and my door hangers with my car behind me, door knocking all the time. And I documented that. So what happens is I convinced myself that this was kind of like the come up story or the success story or the underdog story that everybody gets excited about. Everybody wants to have some incredible story one day that's going to make a positive impact on other people's lives. So doing the things that really do suck and showing what you went through to get to where you will be one day gives you that sense of pride, and it does allow you to find enjoyment because it's almost like all the documentaries, all the videos where people started in this terrible place and they had to go through all these terrible things to get to this incredible position that they're now in. You want to create that story for yourself. And when you can realize that every single time you do something that sucks, that's not fun, that drains you, that you just feel like giving up, that's a really cool piece of the puzzle of your story that one day you're going to be able to share. And number 5 is a quote that I heard. I forget who it's from, but it's really powerful, which is do the things that suck as quickly as possible so that you can do the things that are fun for as long as possible. So there's so many people that delay prospecting and they say, I'll prospect today, and they do like 1 hour. And then they know that they should be doing it every single day, but they skip like 4 days and they do it when they feel like it. And it gets to the point where they have to prospect for years because it takes so much time for them to get the repetitions they need to build momentum. Whereas for me, prospecting 3 hours a day, 7 days a week for 6 months straight, I was able to get like 3 years of an average agent's prospecting time shortened into 6 months. I've never had to prospect a day since after that 6-month mark in my first year. So when we start looking at this, find enjoyment in saying, I'm one day closer to never having to do this again. Because there's so many agents that are 3, 5, 10 years into the business and they still have to prospect because they never found enjoyment in it to the point where they have to do the things that suck for a long time, and they might never get to the position where they can do the things that are fun for a very long time. So if you can start to condense it and find enjoyment in the fact that you're building massive momentum and condensing the time frame of which you're going to have to do things like this for, that really does allow you to enjoy the journey a little bit more. So those are the 5 things that I did to find fulfillment and enjoyment in prospecting, and hopefully they help you as well. Drop a comment below if you have any takeaways or what your favorite point is in this video, or if you have any questions, because we do respond to every single comment.